Welcome pen people, it's Addie. This video covers my submissions for 30 Inks 30 Days, which is a challenge hosted by Ink Journal to use a different ink every day in any month that only has 30 days in it. This is my first time participating and I'm having a lot of fun doing this every day, but there have been a couple of struggles. Honestly, primarily with pens I don't use as often, and limiting myself to a bound insert, which I'm not used to at all. Regardless, I'm glad you're here. Let's get started. Day 1. For this challenge, I decided to use an older Traveler's Notebook insert I had. This is the Kobe number 53 Pearl Silver in a parallel 2.4 millimeter pen. I really like these pens. They're a little tricky to work with though. They're just so broad, much better for titles, but lighter inks like the Kobe really do show up well in them. The Traveler's Notebook insert that I had was one that I had bought a while ago when I was trying different ideas for planners, and I thought it would be a good solution for me, but I do not do well with bound books. I need the flexibility of being able to pull pages out if I mess something up, which you'll see me deal with a little bit later. If I change my mind on how I want the planner in general laid out, like sections, I need to be able to change things. On to day 2. On this day, I used my Jaipur Fountain Pen Revolution with a Ultra Flex stainless steel nib and Dominant Industries Downpour, one of my favorite gray inks. To go with the theme of gray, I went with the gray theme for this week because I was thinking gray skies lead to April showers. Gray happens to be one of my favorite fountain pen ink colors, so I have a pretty wide variety of grays. As you can see, this one's a little darker than yesterday's. It's one that I use a lot for journaling and just general writing. It flows pretty well and doesn't give me many issues in pretty much any pen I've used it in. I really like it a lot, and I went with a Tom Robbins quote here. Now, as you can see, I completely messed up the centering, so in trying to figure out how to fix it, I decided that I would just paste a better version on top and let perfectionism go and just deal with a pasted page. And I'm okay with that. On to day 3, I decided to use my vintage Parker Lucky Curve 14. It's got a 14 karat gold nib. I was told it's from around 1910 to 1920. And for the ink, I used J. Herbin Cacao do Brazil, which is a brownish gray that looks browner on some paper and more gray on others. Sometimes this pen grabs the page a little bit. I might have to have it tuned or looked at. So on this off-white paper, you can see it's definitely got more of a warm tone than Downpour did. And we just finished watching Ted Lasso, so I had to throw a little Ted Lasso quote in there that he said was Walt Whitman, but actually wasn't. But that's okay, Ted. I still like you. And onward to day 4. I decided to use my TWSBI Precision with a 1.1 one stub. The nib has had some hard start issues, and I think it could use some tuning as well. I bought this Precision because I had a Black Classic, and it was my only fountain pen I used with my planner, and then right in the middle of a journal entry, it snapped in half, right at the ink window. The ink I'm using is Diamine's Earl Grey, which probably everybody knows at this point. It's a nice gray. It's a little darker than what I like to use. So now we're on to day 5. I do think that I like doing this kind of thing in the Traveler's Notebook. I like having a dedicated book, and I like being able to use this for something because it's been sitting in my closet for a long time, and I know I wouldn't be able to use it as a planner. So I'm glad I'm doing the project in here. This is a fountain pen revolution. It's a Himalaya version 1 with an Ultraflex nib. The version 1 has a converter. And the ink that I'm using is Diamine Anniversary Silver Fox. You can kind of see the tone of it. This is a lighter gray again, but not quite as light as the Kobe. And it has very nice shading. It is a cool gray. Like you can see the blue tones. And I picked a longer quote. It is a folktale from American Gods by Neil Gaiman. I think I need to use this ink more though. As you can see, the shading is very nice. Day 6, I'm actually using the same pen as yesterday, it's just a different color. It is the Himalaya, actually no, I take that back, it's a version 2. Ultraflex Fountain Pen Revolution. The ink is Oyster Gray by Paper Plume. It's a really lovely dark gray ink, but this pen was writing very, very wet, so I think I need to start tracking how wet pens write, because I have a lot of pens that are similar and I think I get confused. Maybe one of them writes drier and one writes wetter. It's just more information I should try to track before I necessarily blame an ink for a problem that's related to the pen. This quote is another Tom Robbins quote. I did 2 in 1 week. He's one of my favorite authors though, so I'm not going to feel bad about it. And last for this week is day number 7. I am using Vinta Armada for the ink today. It is a special ink. There's blue and green and gray, and the pen is a Hongdian N23 with a long blade nib on it, which I'm told writes close to an architect grind. But I don't have an architect grind, so I don't have anything to compare it to. That's one of the nibs that I'd like to try out. the colors in this ink. I don't have a bottle of this, but I might need a bottle of this. I remember it not behaving well in one of my pens, but it works beautifully in this long blade nib. And I think working through this week has convinced me that I need some broads, or maybe a double broad. And the quote is one that Rust said in True Detective Season 1. It's hard to pick because he had a lot of great quotes. It was a good season. But yeah, I love this. The shading, it's an impressive ink. Just to wrap some things up, a little frustrated with not being able to take pages out. That's a me problem. I do like that I'm using up something that I already had. I'm trying to do a lot more of that and not buy new things all the time. The experience of having to do something and then post it every day is something that I'm not used to, so that was a little bit of a challenge. I want to try to decorate these pages. I started doing some clouds and I want to do some more of that. Going back and filling in some of these spots. Planner is very functional and not artistic. So I would like to do more of that with this because I think it would be nice to have that kind of outlet. I like this layout and I'm going to continue doing that into the next week. Out of these inks, this is my favorite for the week. I like how it worked in this pen. I liked how this pen wrote. I like the bolder nib that isn't a flex. I think I need a bold or double bold. I think I need a bottle of this. Disappointing. I don't think any of them are seriously disappointing. This situation was a little disappointing because this ink, when I used it last time, did not write nearly as wet. So it could be this pen. I need to keep an eye on that. It was starting to feather and I didn't have that problem before. And this nib still makes me angry. I need to get that tuned by somebody at some point. But I like the Earl Grey color more than I remember liking it. Day 7 was super great. Day 6, a little disappointing. That about covers it. Thanks for going through this with me. I'll try to get another video next week when I do week 2. And just a little sneak peek. It's not gray, so that'll be a nice change. Well then, thanks again for stopping by. I hope to see you again soon. Take care. Bye.